Good morning and welcome to another GM Tips. GM Rick here. This time I'm going to go just specifically at a couple target games. Now, mind you, this campaign setting, we're going to do some things on campaign settings that have already been published over the next few weeks. And the reason I'm doing this is because I think people don't understand sometimes these settings. Some of them have played them. Some of them haven't. And so this is going to be something where we dive into ones that you may be familiar with, you may not be with. But my guide may take you down some lanes that you haven't been. So just keep an open mind as you go in. I will promise you I will do a Faerun one. And I will do some ones like Faerun and Greyhawk. But and the reason why I'm going to do these is because there may be areas that you want to run your party that you've questioned and maybe decided, no, I don't know if I want to do this. I want to do my own homebrews. So for those of you that do homebrews and don't have any desire to change, and no matter what you do, looking at this isn't going to help you, I understand. I do. This one's maybe not for you. But for everybody else who's looking at how making a homebrew is just going to be an act of God. And so, and I say that tongue-in-cheek, not religiously, but it's just an act of something supernatural beyond you that would have to do this. So, today's one, we're going to look at the Inner Sea World Guide, but we're going to look specifically at Garund, the continent of Garund. One of my favorite continents. Now, there are a lot of places on the Inner Sea that are great places to go. So don't feel like just because I'm doing Garund, I won't go to the other ones. I will. Now, I don't know if you've seen the Inner Sea continent, so let me get you a map. And first of all, just let you take a look at the map of the region. Because I think more than anything else, you got to see what you're up against world-wise. Paizo did a tremendous job of creating the Inner Sea. The southern continent right there with that Eye of a Bendigo is the continent of Garund and its surrounding islands. This is considered the northern continent of Aveston. And each one has its different things that are unique about it. So I'm going to look at the one where my finger's at the bottom, Garund, and talk about it as well as some of the islands that are off of the side. And tell you a little bit about each. Let's start. First of all, let's take a trek right across from the Chelish Empire. Let's go to Rahadun. Now, what I love about the southern continents and just the whole area itself is it is a flavor of the Mediterranean, Middle East, African, and other cultures all mixed together. It would be as if the continent of Africa and South America, well, let's just say Africa, were below us, and that Aveston was Europe. Okay? Best way to do it. You got to have some reference points sometimes when you look at things. Now, don't get me wrong. They're all unique, but we as human beings base things off of known knowledge. So keep in mind that some of these will remind you of human empires that are already on the face of the planet Earth, but yet they have some stark differences to them. Rahadun probably is the most stark difference of any of the ones that I look at continent-wise on a planet. Rahadun is a desert empire. Okay, it has some green to it. It does have some forest and some lush areas. Don't get me wrong. But it has a lot of desert to it. One of the most unique features of Rahadun is the fact that it is an anti-theistic empire. Now, you heard me talking some earlier GM tips about anti-theism, theism, agnosticism, and atheism. This is not atheism or agnosticism. This is anti-theism. And what's unique about anti-theism? Well, a lot of different things. If you look at an anti-theistic empire, they're an empire that has been most likely had, well, how should I say? They've had a bad experience with gods and goddesses. And this was the case of Rahadun. During the Age of Anguish, the Jitska Empire used to have this realm right here. And it was an amazingly learned empire. but it was conquered later on by the Empire of Osirian. And basically, there were a lot of movements of gods and goddesses into this realm. So Sarenrae, Norgorber, some of the other interesting southern influenced gods and goddesses came into this region. And they had a huge 6-decade war, a ruinous war, between the worshippers of Nethys, Sarenrae, Norgorber, and some other minor deity, or well, I won't say minor, some other deities in the realm. And these oath wars led to serious bloodshed of the populace. The populace became basically the collateral damage. And so there came such a clamor after this in about the year 2555 that the military basically said, we're done. We're done with trying to police this. We're done with the death. We're done with these clergies. And so they put every temple to the torch. And they destroyed and ran out every clergy from their country. Every. And I'm not going to say partial. Every clergy was run out. It said, let no man be beholden to a god. So the next 5 years, as Seir, the capital city where all this started, put into the laws of men. And these were supposedly moralistic codes that would allow people to live by these codes and not need deity influence to make their day-to-day decisions, or whether they were good people or not, or whether they did the right things or not. It's a true lawful neutral empire overall. And they had a government instilled that is a council government. Okay? So they had a ruling council. And to enforce the rules of this council are the Sword of Man. They're the pure legion, led by the Sword of Man. And at this place and time in the timeline, Kar Sakim is the Sword of Man. He's the leader of the Pure Legion. So, what's unique about this country is the fact that it's anti-theistic. It's got so many different areas. It's got a lot of different cities that have rich and really culturally diverse things in it. And yet, there are still some of the remnants of religion practice here, just quietly, so that the pure legion of Asir will not come out and rid the land of all of them. And so the military became this pure legion that enforces these laws. So keep that in mind. This is a nation that is anti-theistic. There are no religions here. So if you really are that kind of person that loves a little conflict and spice, or wants to maybe try to reestablish a quiet temple in this country, now here is a nation worth going to. So that's the first of our nation tour down there in the southern regions. The next one I'm going to drop down to is the Sodden Lands. The Sodden Lands used to be the lands of Larigan. Hang on here. Let me go to my pages here. I always love to go to the reference and add a little bit of the history out of it, because I believe that if you know the history of an area, it may draw your interest. All right, Lake Carthian. Where is my Sodden Lands? The Shackles. There they are. The Sodden Lands. So, they got a nice picture of the Sodden Lands. And I love the artwork, by the way, that was done in this book. The Sodden Lands, what happened was, at the death of the major deity that was looked up to in this world, Erodin, an eye of a Bendigo opened up upon his death. There was a major maelstrom that's off of Garund. The eye of a Bendigo is a gale force hurricane that never dies. It just constantly fuels itself right out there, as you guys saw off the shore. It took the lands of what was Larigan, and there were two others, sorry. There's Larigan and Yamasa. Larigan and Yamasa were the two major lands, and it turned them into a perpetual flood. And so these lands have been uninhabitable. It basically was a cataclysm to the civilizations, the Shori civilizations that were down in this area, and it led to their demise. Larigan was a very learned land. It had seers and a lot of astrologers and astronomers that were within its very, very things, and they were believed a lot into prophecy. And some of them foresaw this prophecy coming and tried to dissuade the rulers from staying here and to evacuate the people. Towards the end, some of them did evacuate, but much of it was destroyed and sent underwater. So there are surviving remnants of what was these civilizations, but a lot of them have turned degenerate or towards the nasty gods and goddesses of the storms and the waters. So you have a lot of intrigue in these lands. There's modules that are written for these areas. I love the Eye of the Storm, and that region was set in Saregama to move up in the second part of this area in the city of Harantium. And the ruins are rich with a lot of lost treasures and magic and other things. However, there's many dangers. You have boggards here, lizard men. You have a lot of other races that are here that are not predominantly human. And so this becomes a really interesting kind of a warped fallen empire scenario. And I would say don't pass it up because it offers a lot of things. Even if you don't base your adventures to start here, you may want to send explorative things from the southern nations below them to go up into these areas because they know there's a lot of lost knowledge here and a lot of cults and other things there that need to be kind of put to an end. Otherwise, they'll rise up and cause some serious damage. So there's a lot that goes on in this empire, or once two sets of empires that have fallen. The next are the Shackle Isles. Now, I love the Shackles. The Skull and Shackles adventure path came off of them. The Shackles are a pirate confederation, is the best way to put it. Some of the pirates are really privateers and good. Some of them are just a bunch of surly, saucy Captain Jack types. Others are just evil ones. So, like Barbossa was in the first, and like what's his name? The one that does the Dutchman, the Flying Dutchman. This is an area has different pirate islands, and they're all flavor of the whole planet of Galarian. You've got the Tiens from the Far East that are the Asian cultures. You have the Kaldaru, which are a mysterious olive skin lot that are down from the city of Kaldaru. Or not Kaldaru, but, oh gosh, what's the name of it? As I go through here and do all these things. I have to look at it. There's one of the ports down there that have those. You have people from the Mwangi, escaped slaves, or slavers. You have people from the Jalmaray Empire, which is the Far Eastern Vudrani people. So they're more of your Indian, Pakistani, just far Persian type people. You have Kelishites. You have Osirianis, which are the Garundi people. You have people from the Chelish Empire who didn't want to be under the crown of Abigail Thrun. You have a lot of different Tal'Darim people. You've got a little Opara that's there. You've got an Oparan offshoot that's there. You have a lot of different microcosms of people. You even have all the way up from the north where you have the Ulfins, your Nords. So all of these came into this pirate confederation, and instead of letting it tear itself apart, they decided to have a ruling council called the Free Captaincy. Kind of like if you go to Pirates of the Caribbean, where they have the pirate lords. These are the lords and lordesses who make the day-to-day decisions, and there's a Storm King that rules over them all. And the Storm King is elected by these others, and the Storm King rules for so many years. And the neat thing about this is it's a great place if you want to get into a more privateering, pirate type of campaign. The city of Port Peril is based on the mainland in the Mwangi Highlands, and it is a pirate capital beyond all else. Now, mind you, the pirates don't sink every ship. they allow free trade. As long as you negotiate with the free captaincy, they will protect you to a certain level and your ships coming through, because they do want trade. But they're going to privateer and take crews off of other ships that have not done this. The Rahadumis seem to be the target of many of these raids, as do the Osirianis and the Thuvians. They try to raid these caravans, and the Chelish are hated. They became a barrier between the colony of Saregama, which we'll discuss here in a few minutes. And so they're a rich, rich empire. Now, below them is another empire, the island of Mediogalti. Now, Mediogalti is an interesting empire. It was once a pirate haven. It still kind of is. The one city on the island is. However, the Red Mantis Guild and the Red Mantis god worshippers were thrown out of the mainland of Garund and landed here in Mediogalti. So the Red Mantis assassins and their temple of worship is here on Mediogalti. It's a really unique group. They wear mantis armor that looks like a praying mantis, and their swords are serrated swords, saw swords that look like the claws of course, a mantis. And everybody thinks, wow, assassins, they have no order, no law, and they are a very much a law-given lot. Even the gods respect the Red Mantis god. He is about devouring his enemies, but at the same time there is a sense of order, and there's a sense of respect, and there's a sense of law, even among thieves, as they say. So these guys have their codes of honor and the head of the Red Mantis is a woman, and she is an interesting piece of work. I'm not going to go into all the details, but that's one of the other places there on that side of the world. Now, next to that is the Milonga Expanse, one of my favorite places. Why? It's jungle. If you look at the Milonga Expanse and how much of Garund it takes up, you've got the Milonga Expanse, and then if you go diagonal, you go over to the other part of it, the jungle right above Saregama, and you have the highlands. So you've got highlands and lowlands, you've got jungle, and there's a lot of lost knowledge here. The old mage Jitembe, which is a supposedly never-dying mage, kind of their Gandalf version, has lived there for forever. And he had some different followers and disciples that he would go out and protect the land from. So there's a lot of old cities, lost civilizations, a lot of tribes. Some of the tribes more civilized than others. Some tribes enslave others. There's just such a richness to it. And everybody wants to go. There's crusade after crusade who's gone down here to try to find the lost knowledge of the Shori Empire that is in here. And they're a learned people. Though enslaved, often enslaved, just like colonialism, slavery, these people fight to be their own proud rulers. You've got the Elige and Akuje elves, which are the dark-skinned elves that are down here. You've got the halflings that are down here. Some of them very nice, some of them cannibalistic, as well as the gnomes that are kind of nice and kind of cannibalistic. So it just depends on the tribe you come up against. A lot of demons are worshipped here, including there's a demon ape god that is in this area that rules this realm. And they're raised up apes. And Sherukau, which are also a very intelligent simian that's almost like a baboon, but very intelligent. So there's a lot of different unique races here, and I love that for that. And the risks of diseases and lost treasure and lost cities. It's just a really cool place to be. Then there's the fledgling colony of Saregama. One of the Tal'Doran expeditions came down, and they made their way, Chelish expeditions. The Tal'Dorans came down too, but these were the Chelish Empire who came down this way. This was back before Evergrail Thrune took the Empire, took the Empire. This was back when they had the previous kings that were more following Erodin and some of the other more lawful gods and goddesses like Abadar. They came down and settled Saregama. and they settled the capital of the leader. And they, from there, turned it into a satellite empire that would export sugars and coffees and rare woods and other things and metals up to the Chelish Empire. Well, they sided with the side that was not the demon, or the devil influence, the diabolical side. So when the Thrones took the throne, they saw them as traitors to the empire. And so these Saregavans paid the pirates on the shackles to protect them. And since then, they have been the buffer against many Chelish Inquisition groups that have come down to try retake this area and region. So keep that in mind. Now, mind you, this is going to be about a 25-minute video, so hang with me. I know it's going to be a little bit long, but I've got to get through all these, and I want to. Thuvia. Thuvia is more of a tribal nation, many multiple tribes. They have some cities. It is mostly desert. It was part of the Osirian Empire at one time and part of the Jitska Empire back, and it's done a back and forth kind of thing. But they've earned their own freedom. And one of the things they have is they have the sun orchid. And the sun orchid is a very rare plant that, when turned into a certain elixir, can prolong life in a natural way, not an unnatural way. And so one of the alchemists figured out the formula and hid themselves away. And now it is the major export of that area. And everyone brings stuff to them just to get a chance each year to bid on the Sun Orchid Elixir. And there's only so many that make the bid. And there's only so much that's sold a year. So keep in mind, it's a very unique and kind of interesting area, but it's very tribal. So think of your tribal Middle Eastern areas, like Tunisia and Libya and some of these other areas. This is what Thuvia is. Osirian, Egypt, basically your Egyptian empire. They rose up out of the ashes of infancy way back before Starfall and lasted well after Starfall. They've gone through some hard times because the Kelishite Imperium from Qadira came across and took them over as a satrapy for a while. And for many years, about 1,000 years, they were under a satrapy. But they have now freed themselves under the Ruby Prince's line, Kemet. And the Ruby Prince has taken over. And he is sitting on the throne at this time in Sothis, the capital. I love it because there's so much lost knowledge. Nephis is the patron god of this country, though you'll see a lot of Sarenrae here as well. And you'll see Lamash, too, mother of the beasts, also in this region. As you will see, Rovagug and some others. There are some really interesting things. And if you like an Egyptian lost treasure type of thing, the Mummy's Mask and many other types of adventures have been set here. Katapesh. Katapesh is like Turkey. Its capital, Katapesh City, is like Istanbul or Constantinople. It depends on which one you want to pick. Probably more Istanbul. It's a mix and melting pot of all cultures. Every country has representatives in Katapesh City. You can get anything in its night markets and night stalls. Slaves, rare drugs, other things. The pesh that comes out of there supposedly gives men vision and opens their mind, men and women. So it is highly regarded and desired. Abadar is definitely a patron god of Katapesh City. Now, Sarenrae also has her influence as well in one of the smaller cities that is towards the mountains. The Knolls are very populous here. So Lamashtu and Rovagug are also worshipped in this country. Slavery is very welcome. Okino, the island, is a place where the slavers have really set up things, their little trade thing. So if you want to go to Okino, you can get pretty much slaves anywhere. Slaves are sold in Katapesh City. And the ruling council are supposedly, the Pact Masters, are supposedly aliens from another planet. They wear interesting garb, they talk interestingly, and they're unique. Whether they're from the Dreamlands, whether they're from another planet, no one knows for sure. Their voice is one of their appointed that will go out and enforce the laws. They're about the laws of trade. If you break trade laws, your life is more forfeit than if you take a life in this realm. So keep that in mind. Fair trade is very important to them. Nex and Geb. Geb is the nation of the undead. Nex is the nation of the wizards. Geb and Nex were two wizards. Geb believed in necromancy. Nex believed more in evocation and more the standard magics. Nex didn't like how Geb was going with his different thinking. So the two went at war with each other. Both are kind of satellite empires of the Osirian culture of Garundis. They have fought for years. They're finally at a kind of a truce. The Arch Lords of Nex protect Nexium because Nex has disappeared, as has Geb. Geb was supposedly slain, even though he was undead. The Whore Queen Arasni rules Geb right now, and she was one of the right hands of Iamade that was raised because the Iamadeans came down here with one of the Crusades to try to stop Geb. They took her and they brought her back and they raised her into a Lich Queen, and so she's quite worked, and she's not what she used to be. So keep in mind, now most of Geb is undead. Geb believes that if during life you get your life in that country and are protected to a certain level, but once you die, your body is theirs to raise. And so there are hordes of skeletons and zombies that are raising a lot of fertile crops that they sell to other nations on Garund. It's a lucrative trade. And they don't violate it. They don't poison them. They don't try to turn them. However, it is thought that the Whispering Way, which is a cult of one of the nasty liches, it has home here in Nex. And so it's an interesting nation. Between them is the Mana Waste. That's the wasteland. It's a spell wasteland that has really kind of taken root in that area. And the city of Alkenstar, because of all the craziness of magic, went to technology. And it's where gunpowder took hold. So the cannons and the firearms come out of there, as well as the shield wardens, who are the marshals. They're kind of the Wild West marshals that protect the trade and keep people honest about the firearms. And so they protect the area, and there's a lot of spell storms and mutants that come out of those spell areas, and a lot of spell blight. So there's Garund. I didn't get to Jamulray. Jamulray is a Vudrani type of Indian offshoot. There's a lot of temples to Aurori, the goddess of, she's a lawful neutral goddess of inner perfection and outer perfection. And so there's a lot of martial arts temples and different temples on Jamulray. It is a very much like the Kazmaran culture where the Vudrani come from, with many gods and goddesses. And there's a lot of Rakshasa and other things there in that empire. So there's some really unique and very Indian-flavored and Pakistani-flavored adventures in those areas. I love it because the South gives you such a slice of life that is different than Euro culture. So those of you that down the Euro culture and want something different, there you go, right there. And it gives you a lot of stories and unique things and adventure paths and different adventures that have been done in those realms. So that's it for me. I'm sorry that it's taken a little bit, but I wanted to really do a nice dive in there. I'm going towards 30 minutes. I'm sorry. You have to chop it up into bites. Rick M, the GM, on Twitter without a K, or RICMOH45 on Gmail for comments. Thanks again, and have a great week.